Good morning, Andrews Elementary, and happy Thursday. It's going to be another beautiful day, so let's make sure we get outside and do something fun, get some fresh air, get some energy. I'm going to start something new today. I'm excited about, instead of reading one book per day, I am choosing a chapter book from one of my favorite authors, Roald Dahl. And the title of this book is something you'll probably recognize. It's called James and the Giant Peach. Now, one of the things that I love about Roald Dahl's books are the illustrations. So there's not as many pictures or illustrations as one of the other books I've read, but there are some fun illustrations that I'll show along the way. So each day I'm going to read one or two chapters from the book. They're short chapters, so it won't be a long video. But I thought that this way we could kind of read a new book together, have some fun, and you could keep coming back and seeing or listening to the chapters of the story. So in a few days, we'll have the book done, and then you can say that you've read James and the Giant Peach, which looks like, a pretty thick book, but there's actually quite a few illustrations, and I think you'll find that you really like the story. So before I begin, remember that today is Thursday, so today for most of you is an ELA day, so make sure you're doing your reading, make sure you're answering those questions. Remember, when we read, it's always good to kind of stop along the way and check to make sure you're understanding what you're reading. Because if you read a whole page but you don't know what you just read, you've kind of wasted it. So make sure you read a couple paragraphs, stop and check to make sure that you're understanding what you're reading. And if not, then you only have to go back and reread a couple paragraphs instead of a whole page. Okay? So, Roald Dahl, James and the Giant Peach. Chapter 1. Until he was 4 years old, James Henry Trotter had a happy life. He lived peacefully with his mother and father in a beautiful house beside the sea. There were always plenty of other children for him to play with, and there was the sandy beach for him to run on, and the ocean to paddle in. It was the perfect life for a small boy. Then, one day, James' mother and father went to London to do some shopping, and there a terrible thing happened. Both of them suddenly got eaten up, in full daylight, mind you, on a crowded street by an enormous, angry rhinoceros which had escaped from the London Zoo. Now this, as you can well imagine, was a rather nasty experience for two such gentle parents. But in the long run, it was far nastier for James than it was for them. Their troubles were all over in a jiffy. They were dead and gone in 35 seconds flat. Poor James, on the other hand, was still very much alive, and all at once he found himself alone and frightened in a vast, unfriendly world. The lovely house by the seaside had to be sold immediately, and the little boy, carrying nothing but a small suitcase containing a pair of pajamas and a toothbrush, was sent away to live with his two aunts. Their names were Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, and I'm sorry to say that they were both really horrible people. They were selfish and lazy and cruel. Right from the beginning, they started beating poor James for almost no reason at all. They never called him by his real name, but always referred to him as "you disgusting little beast," or "you filthy nuisance," or "you miserable creature." And they certainly never gave him any toys to play with or any picture books to look at. His room was as bare as a prison cell. They lived, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, and now James as well, in a weird ramshackle house on top of a hill in the south of England. The hill was so high that from almost anywhere in the garden James could look down and see for miles and miles across a marvelous landscape, woods and fields. And on a very clear day, if he looked in the right direction, he could see a tiny gray dot far away in the horizon, which was the house that he used to live in with his beloved mother and father. And just beyond that, he could see the ocean itself, a long, thin streak of blackish blue, like a line of ink beneath the rim of the sky. But James never allowed to go down, or he was never allowed to go down off the top of that hill. Neither Aunt Sponge nor Aunt Spiker could ever be bothered to take him out herself, not even for a small walk or a picnic, and he certainly wasn't permitted to go alone. "The little nasty beast will only get into mischief if he goes out into the garden," Aunt Spiker said. And terrible punishments were promised him, such as being locked up in the cellar with the rats for a week, if he even so much as dared to climb over the fence. Now, take a look at this illustration where they lived. See, there's the house, on the top of the hill. Quite the view. The garden, which was covered the whole top of the hill, was large and desolate, and the only tree in the entire place, apart from a clump of dirty old laurel bushes at the far end, was an ancient peach tree that never gave any peaches. There was no swing, no seesaw, no sand pit, and no other children were ever invited to come up the hill to play with poor James. There wasn't so much as a dog or a cat around to keep him company. And as time went on, he became sadder and sadder and more lonely, and he used to spend hours every day standing at the bottom of the garden, gazing wistfully at the lovely but forbidden world of woods and fields and oceans that was spread out below like a magic carpet. All right, friends, so that's chapter 1. Pretty sad beginning to a story, but stay with me. It gets pretty exciting. All right, friends, let's have a great Thursday. Tomorrow I'll read chapter 2. Remember, if nobody told you they love you today, I love you very much. Let's have a great Thursday.